It's Captain Forest here, and in today's video I'm going to be going over the spicy crossverse matchup. I have Akuma from Street Fighter versus Rugal from King of Fighters. Now of course, after posting on my community tab about doing some King of Fighters content, I got a lot of good feedback and reception, so I figured I'd dabble into this and look for a matchup, and I figured these two would fit very well. If you guys enjoy King of Fighters content, I'm more than welcome to do some more matchups in the future. Just comment down below and show me that energy and show me that love. Make sure you guys comment down below, give me your thoughts. Make sure you like the video, and if you guys enjoy my content, please consider subscribing. Also, shouts to the Coffee Shop Gang to make awesome content. Their links will be in the description. Also, huge shout out to HQ Squad, shouts to Nyotic for helping me with some of the King of Fighters section as well for Rugal. And shout out to everyone else who supports, of course. And my links will be in the description. But anyway, I'm going to go ahead and start off with Akuma and see what the Satsui no Hado brings to the table. So chi in Street Fighter is spiritual and mental in nature. It's even been stated by Seth during the Bleak project that the machine absorbs spiritual energy from the host's body. It's shown on many occasions to completely corrupt the mind of the users who attempt to use it. Its power, such as Ryu, who has shown to restrain the Satsui no Hado from taking control of him and literally just changing him. Akuma himself has mastery and control over the Satsui no Hado. He's demonstrated this on a number of occasions to control this power on a masterful level, which is very impressive. So he's not even corrupted or affected by its crazy insane power. So moves such as like the Raging Demon, which attacks the soul, and it can either BFR it too. Those are just some of the techniques, for example, that can affect you on a physical, spiritual, mental level. Those are some of the things he can perform. So any other technique in Street Fighter that he uses that requires chi will pretty much contain all these three elements. So now that I've gone over that, I'm going to talk more about some of his chi showings, of course. So he can perform the move called the Kuretsuha, which is a giant explosion of ki, where Akuma engulfs his fist in concentrated chi and punches the ground, erupting the ground with a burst of fire as his opponent gets caught in the blast. He can also perform the Gohadouken, where he throws a chi blast at his opponent. A chi also can vaporize you. He can also lace his attacks with chi as well. Akuma also has really good chi sensory. Like chi users can detect chi, and they can also determine the person's power level through reading their chi too. Akuma is able to put out a chi barrier which absorbs attacks upon impact, and Akuma can also perform the demon teleportation in mid-combat, as well as to leave the battlefield as well. He's also demonstrated to physically hurt Kage, who is literally just a shadow, so he can affect shadows too. He's also dealt with characters who have or can fight on instincts. He has fought and reacted to Ryu. Ryu himself is able to fight and react to Blanka, who fights on pure instincts alone. And Seth backs this up in his own statement after defeating Blanka in one of his win quotes, stating that there is no value in fighting out pure instinct. You have nothing for me. Sort of powerful characters, like not god tier characters, or just characters that can reach those levels, or like high tier at least, or mid tier, they feel like instinctive reaction or instinctive combat fodder. And you've got like Ryu completely embarrassing these characters, who's easily above them, as well as Akuma too. Akuma has also reacted to Ryu on a good amount of occasions when Ryu himself also has instinctive and precognition as well, thanks to his mind's eye allowing him to anticipate an attack and come up with a counterattack. And despite having precognition, Akuma is still able to get one over on Ryu in their fights. And lastly, let's move on to skill. So Akuma transcends all forms of martial arts. He's mastered over matter and energy, and he also knows techniques such as the Goshoryu, Tatsumaki Senpuken, and the Anatsuken, and just many other fighting styles too, naturally. So moving on to resistances. So Akuma has some soul resistance. He was able to break out Nikali's body, who was struggling to consume his soul. And he also has mind, body and soul resistances, naturally, because of the Satsui no Hado. That thing makes you go insane. It corrupts your mind, body and soul, and Akuma is just fine while wielding such a power, because usually if you take on this power, makes you really corrupt, and you won't even be in your right mind, and Akuma is just fine when he manifests his power. Akuma has resistance to atomic destruction, of course, since chi vaporizes the body too, at least on an atomic level. And Akuma can break out of BFR. After Gen trapped him in a realm, Akuma breaks 3, so he has some ways to get around BFR. Okay, so that's going to round up Akuma. I'm going to go ahead and start off with Rugal. I'll pretty much be going over his manga and also some of the canon stuff, some of his canon feats, and also talk a bit about Omega Rugal. But yeah, let's get right into the meat and potatoes of things and start off with his ruthless martial arts and skill. So Rugal has mastered every martial art and has mastered every single sport. It's stated that his fighting style is one that makes use of all of them in one form, completely being a composite, so he can infuse all of his martial arts into one and composite it all, which is very impressive. Rugal can create a psychic blast of energy and shoot them as a projectile that travels through the ground. He can create a barrier that reflects other projectiles back at the user. Rugal's son, who also has his powers, can do the same thing. Rugal can also charge a ball of electricity and throw it at his opponents. As Omega Rugal, he can reflect back projectiles with just his one hand alone, which is very impressive. Rugal can also grab his opponents and engulf them in psychic energy, and it should be noted that if he infuses a person with Orochi's energy, which destroys a person if they do not have the correct bloodline, so that's very impressive right there. So what essentially happens to people who either A, cannot control the power of Orochi's energy, or they don't have the correct bloodline, so they will die instantly. Rugal was able to absorb a foreign energy source into his body, which is the one that instantly kills you if you're not of the correct bloodline, and makes it as his own power, becoming Omega Rugal. Rugal has tanked Kyo's fire, which has been described as psychic when he was fighting Gotenks. Most energy in the King of Fighters universe is psychic, but ki also exists too. Rugal can use ki with full mastery and has a passive ki barrier that protects him from ki attacks and physical attacks. When manipulating ki, you're basically turning your mind into a physical form and control it in pretty much any way your mind can think of. Rugal, just like Yuri, has the ability to copy any attack he sees once with a glance. Unlike Yuri, however, he can also master it. It also should be noted that he doesn't just copy things using ki, he's able to directly copy foreign energy sources as well, as he was able to copy psychic energy from Athena, so he can copy foreign energy sources and master it with a glance easily. Very impressive. Also, he has resurrection, as he died in King of Fighters when his boat exploded and just came back to life for some weird reason. Some say it's the Orochi power, but I haven't been able to confirm it. But it should be noted that he lost an entire arm in that explosion too, but he just came back to life despite blood loss. So he has type 2 and 4 immortality arguably. Now type 2 is pretty much where you can survive injuries that would normally kill a person, such as their arm getting blown off and other injuries that he sustained during his battles with other opponents. And type 4 is simply resurrection, where you can revive yourself when you die, but that is a little bit contentious, but I figured I'd mention that anyway. But anyway, that's going to round up Rugal. I'm going to go ahead and break this fight down to see who would win, more often than not. Now, in an equal stats situation, both combatants have pretty interesting win cons. Akuma has his Raging Demon, he has his teleportation, he has many ways to go about the fight. Now in terms of chi, like ki for both combatants, I don't think that's going to be inherently an issue. Both Rugal and Akuma can use chi based attacks. They both affect you on a physical, spiritual, mental level, so I think they'd be able to counter each other pretty easily and cancel each other out. Now of course Rugal does have his barrier, so it's going to be pretty difficult for Akuma to get through. Now I don't think the Raging Demon will even affect Rugal thanks to the ki barrier. I think the ki barrier will put out and protect him and his soul from Akuma. So I think he'd be fine in that department. Now in terms of skill, it's very close. You can honestly argue it, like Rugal could have the advantage if he, you know, continues to like fight Akuma. If they go hand to hand, blow for blow, the adaptation and of course like him being able to copy the abilities and master them like in that instant, in like that situation, I think that can be pretty dangerous if Akuma lets the fight go on for too long. Now I can even argue and even say that if the fight goes on and Rugal sees Akuma use the Satsui no Hado, he could even copy the like energy. I'd wager he'd be able to even copy the Raging Demon. He could even copy the Satsui no Hado, that form of energy. I definitely think Rugal would be able to, and he'd probably be able to use it against Akuma, but I think Akuma would be able to just cancel it pretty easily. So I do think that starting off at the fight, I think Akuma may have the edge in skill, but if he's not careful and if he continues to scrap with Rugal and he allows Rugal to study and watch him and watches every movement as they go blow for blow, I think Rugal may have the advantage in skill, as he'd just be adding like arsenals of different types of martial arts from Akuma, and of course mastering it at the same time. So it could go back and forth. It just depends on your interpretation. So it just depends. But I think skill is pretty interesting. I think Rugal, in my opinion, I think at the start, I don't think he falls too short, but I do think Akuma may have the edge slightly, or you could argue them being relative. But I do think that once the copying abilities kick in, I think that will definitely help Rugal. Now I think the biggest win con for Akuma is the teleportation, is the BFR. I think if he goes for a Raging Demon, yes, Rugal will be able to protect his soul from the destruction part, but if it comes to the BFR, I think Rugal is screwed. I don't think Rugal has anything against the BFR aspect of the Raging Demon. Just send him somewhere into a different dimension and leave him there is pretty screwed. Now Rugal also has a pretty good win con which could definitely work on Akuma and kill him. Of course he has Orochi's blood. If he engulfs and imbues Akuma with that, like Akuma does not have the same bloodline as Orochi, so I think that'd kill him. That's a really good win con for Rugal. Honestly, I think this fight is really close, and it just depends on your interpretation on what you think would happen more often than not. I do think that with high difficulty, I do lean a little bit more with Akuma, because I think the BFR aspect, the demon teleportation, he could teleport and behind Rugal, he could teleport through Rugal's ki blasts or any other techniques he performs. And of course, like, you can even argue for Akuma. Akuma also has instinctive reaction. He's above other characters who fight purely on instincts, like Blanca. He's vastly above them, and he's even scrapped against like Power of Nothingness Ryu himself, who has a heightened sense of instincts. He's above instincts, so it's like Master Ultra Instinct in a way. So in fact you could even argue Akuma having better senses, and you know, in the fight you could even argue for him. But I think more often than not, my opinion, I think Akuma could take victory. But if we look at other scenarios, you could definitely argue Rugal taking victory, especially with the Orochi blood. That definitely one-shot Akuma, no difficulty. But thank you guys for watching. Hope you guys enjoyed this video. Let me know your thoughts and who you think wins more often than not. But yeah, it's been real. I'll see you guys in the next one.